So, you want to write a story and decide there needs to be at least 1,000 characters in it or else you're a failure. If you're not willing to lower your standards, you're left with an incredible challenge. How do you make all these characters distinct from one another? This is a task that One Piece's Ichiro Oda finds himself faced with, and one he miraculously handles really well. One Piece is filled to the brim with memorable characters thanks to several different techniques Oda employs. As a visual medium, the most readily apparent method is through character design. Oda nails this out of the park! Yeah, occasionally some of the women will have too much Tsunami on their face, but that's the only feeling he has when it comes to distinguishing designs. And it's not like all women come down with a case of the Namis either. It is disappointing, but One Piece has so many countless creative and awesome designs that overall, Oda definitely gets 2 thumbs up here. Another tactic is giving several characters their own unique laughs. I mean, it's a nice touch, and I certainly associate some of those characters with their laugh, like Luffy's shi, but in a police lineup, I'd never be able to match up most characters with their laugh. That's not what I want to talk about though. Rather, I'm here to explain just how well Oda utilizes gags to make characters work. One way to make a character distinctly memorable is to attach them with their own specific gag, and it's something I've seen a few anime do. Besides One Piece, an example that immediately jumps to my mind is Hitman Reborn, and I'm bringing this up because unfortunately, that's a case of it not working out. The daily life arc of that series is such a struggle to get through, mainly due to how repetitive of an experience it is, in large part because the cast is mostly defined by a singular gag. It didn't matter what wacky situation the characters found themselves in, every episode felt the same because every character was just there to provide their same one-note joke, like Yamamoto thinking everything is just a game. The only variance in humor being that they would add new characters with a new gag attached to them, sometimes with an additional gag tied to one of their relationship dynamics, like Bianchi. Not only did this make the series feel formulaic and uninteresting, but it reduced every character to their joke. They didn't feel like characters, they felt like running gags. Ones that I didn't find very funny the first go around either. To be fair to Reborn, I understand it only starts as a gag series and that it supposedly gets really good after shifted into an action series, but I haven't personally experienced that due to how much I both dislike skipping content and the content featured in the daily life arc. Obviously, I think Oda handles this a lot better, so let's discuss how Oda incorporates gags to make his character stronger. This first point is a lot more subjective, but one of the strengths is that Oda's gags are usually genuinely funny. One Piece's sense of humor and charm is one of its strongest aspects, and while there are some duds here, many character-specific gags I do find pretty amusing. Even minor characters like Lulu from Water 7. It's so simple and dumb and fun, I love the visual humor of him just shoving his hair down and the spike reappearing elsewhere. And with such an extensive cast of characters, none of these gags get the chance to overstay their welcome. Like yeah, Tilestone's yelling could get obnoxious if it was overplayed, but he's just one small part of a much grander arc. Water 7 is a really strong showcase for the series' humor. Every member of Gali La has a gag that always lands for me, like Cauliflower's claims of sexual harassment, or Parley raging against the scantily clad. They don't have to even be overt jokes like that. Kaku's old man speech is also something both amusing and endearing. Now, while it's not necessary for those gags to contain a ton of variance considering their relative short tenure in the series, I feel it's important to note that several supporting characters do have gags with a lot of variance. It is more likely that we'll get a case like Parley, where he has a strong gag associated with him, but his character just has more serious moments to counteract him being defined solely through his jokes. But on occasion, Oda will give us the gift of a character like Gadatsu from Sky Piea. Gadatsu is a forgetful idiot, and Oda goes all out on showcasing that. Whether it be Gadatsu's failed attempts at crossing his arms, blinding himself by rolling his eyes all the way back, or forgetting to breathe, he stands out as one of the funniest characters in the series with how many clumsy mistakes he's constantly making. But let's shift focus to the Straw Hat Pirates themselves, as unlike the aforementioned examples, they're a constant throughout the series. Along with the obvious, the gags are funny and don't define the character, Oda makes the gag approach works in 2 ways that are important to address. The first is that he gives his crew gags. Plural. I'm not even really counting dynamic gags here like Sanji and Zoro's fighting, but several crewmates tend to have multiple character gags established for them. I think the best examples here are Chopper and Brook. The former has a terrible tsundere act upon receiving compliments, his grand gullibility, or his horrible hiding. or how the latter wants to see your panties and will bombard you with skull jokes. Not that every member has several prominent gags, at least on their own since the crew dynamics flesh out the comedic range of everyone, but it certainly helped the later crew members stick out more positively when they were introduced. However, the most important element, the thing that really makes Oda's gags stand out, is that they are often more than just gags. They're not just a funny trait about the character, they're more like a habit developed through their own history. Now, obviously, this isn't the case for everyone. We don't get any insight that Kadatsu was dropped on his head as a kid or anything. But typically when there is a flashback, Oda will often use it as a chance to explain a character's quirk. The earliest example being Usopp, which reveals his lion originally began as a way to try and convince his mother to hang on to life, and continued as a coping mechanism after losing both his parents in one way or another. Then there's cat burglar Nami. Her obsessive love of money stems from her poor upbringing as an orphan, and was exacerbated by Arlong's arrival, both in how it added to the weight of Bellemere's financial sacrifice for her daughters, and how money became the only path Nami saw to free her village from the clutches of Arlong's rule. Strangely though, the strongest example, the impetus of this video in fact, doesn't come from a Straw Hat, it doesn't even come from a major character. It comes from a character who was seemingly just another member to defeat working on the Doflamingo, Senor Pink. Senor Pink is someone who I almost immediately dismissed as one of Oda's duds. Just a dude that for some reason is dressed up like a baby? And I think that was probably the intention. To dismiss him as just some gag villain, but in the biggest flex in Dressrosa, Oda turned Senor Pink into one of the greatest characters of the series with a single chapter detailing his backstory. Stuck between intense loyalty to the family and love towards Rasen, his lie ended up causing a rift between them when tragedy strikes, and their newborn baby Gimlet ends up dying from a fever. His lie is exposed through her attempts to contact him, and she departs despite the weather once he finally returns home, only to get caught up in a landslide and end up in a vegetative state, unable to express any emotion. One of the reasons this setup is so powerful is because of how it deviates from One Piece's norms. Like most backstories are from the perspective of youth, partially because inherited will is a constant within One Piece, and that's best expressed with parental or mental relationships. The result of this means death tends to come for the adults, maybe in some sacrificial gesture, so the death here being their newborn infant and the focus being on the fractured relationship with his wife, it just hits differently. Especially since One Piece typically avoids focusing on romance, and his backstory is dramatically entrenched in romance. But the main thing that really separates it is just how real the circumstances are. Pink's backstory features no fantastical elements to it. Just replace him being a pirate with him working in the mafia or a drug cartel, and this exact situation could feasibly happen. The backstory of a man who swims through concrete and dresses like a baby has arguably the most grounded backstory in all of One Piece. The situation just feels more tangible. Anyway, returning to the backstory, we get a glimpse of the numerous visits Pink made to her, the daily attempts at trying to elicit any kind of reaction, to heal her. Eventually leading him to try wearing a bonnet on his head, which eventually works, leading to him dressing as a baby solely for the reason that it's the only thing that makes her smile. One small moment I love here is that before it works, Pink's reaction is, "Better take this off before someone sees me," only for every trace of that sentiment to be washed away by her smile. Pink's backstory, along with making me appreciate his character a lot more, made me appreciate Oda's gift for incorporating a character's gag into their backstory, to transform the comic relief element of their personality into something more profoundly telling of their history and character. The way Oda utilizes character-specific gags is so masterful that I felt like it deserved a video to sign attention on it. So I did that thing where I made one. Now you guys can do that thing all other YouTubers tell you to do. You know, write your own epic story with over 1,000 characters, utilizing all the tips and tricks you learned in this video. I want it on my desk by the end of the month. This is 20% of your final grade, so take it seriously.